Let's continue to get response to those utterances by Judge Ratha Mokgoatlheng. We're joined by Nkosana Mvundlela, who is, of course, with the president, rather, of the Law Society of South Africa. Mr. Mvundlela, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Initial thoughts. Judge Mokgoatlheng says, this is South Africa run by blacks. And then he goes on to say that he believes that if it was white people in the room, this is not be happening. In fact, let me say it verbatim. This is South Africa run by blacks. I can tell you now, a white advocate would never have the gall to ask me that. Never. What do you think of what you heard?
Thanks. Good evening to your viewers and good evening to you. Thank you so much for having us. It is a very unfortunate statement made by a presiding officer who has taken oath to defend and protect the rule of law and democracy. It is very saddening that almost 11 months ago, we were actually addressing the very same issue of these disparaging remarks that are made by a judge presiding in this matter. You would recall that last year, we around this time, around May, we were addressing the issue of almost the same context. It cannot be correct that judicial officers sit there and instead of addressing issues with which they are unhappy with the conduct of a practitioner who has written a letter or a note to them or via a registrar as they ought to, and then they read it out there in public. But in an unprovoked manner, a person then goes out and makes such unfortunate remarks. It is just a very, very sad day indeed in South Africa that we are sitting with this kind of a conversation. Yeah,
I want to get to the technicalities around the point that you're making around the registrar for a moment, but I want to hear if you describe the utterances by the judge as racist or racially fueled. I mean, you've got, for instance, Advocate Dalimpofu, whose clip we played earlier, describing it as something that he sees as self-hatred. How would you describe what this says?
Once you talk about black and compare it to white, you can't move away from actually then ascribing it as a race issue. Because when a person says to you, a white advocate would not have the gall to say that to me, it means that he believes, or at least he holds a view, that a white person sitting there would not think that way. Unfortunately, it's a sad race remark, which we call on him to actually then find a way to desist from this thing, particularly because it's a repeat conduct, which we have already lamented about last year, and it is rearing its ugly head again in his court, and we would have expected of him to understand that from where we sit as the Law Society of South Africa, we strive every day with our members, all white, black, Indians, and coloreds, to ensure that we unite them. Instead, a presiding officer sits there and draws comparisons of a race undertones, suggestive of the fact that it is because of your color that you are either thinking this way or that way. Yeah. It cannot be something that we would want to condone.
So what do we do at this point? So there's two issues that have been raised by a few legal experts saying that, well, Charles Mnisi was well within his rights to inform the registrar and not the judge directly. So help us with that clarification and what we do about that when a judge then takes these discussions to such a public platform, especially a trial that is watched so intently by the rest of the country, what we do with that. And then you've got, of course, bodies representing black legal professionals that are saying that, well, they're going to take this issue up with the Judicial Services Commission, the Pan-African Bar Association, saying they're going to lay a formal complaint. So what should happen next?
Look, ethically, we are expected as officers of the court to address the judge through the registrar. You do not just stand up, go out and go and say, even if you want to see the judge, you would go through the judge's register. It is expected that, and you would have heard in that clip, the prosecutor who is there saying, it is a correct approach that he wrote to the registrar to inform you that this is what his situation is. Now, that is ethically correct. And I don't then understand why would complying with our ethical obligations mean that we are disrespectful as officers of the court. That's one. And I wouldn't somewhat decry those that feel that the matter, it's about time that the matter is actually reported to the JSC, and the JSC, the Judicial Conduct Committee, must investigate this kind of conduct and make a finding about it. Because if judicial officers are going to be the ones who are speaking against the Constitution and making racist remarks or any remarks that have an undertone of race in them to depict ability, inability, or conduct akin to to unacceptability, then we find it normal as society that we should accept it.
Yeah.
We should actually call it what it is. When judicial officers are presiding, their job is to ensure that they attract at least a sense of responsibility to themselves, to the society, that the society must continue trusting the justice system.
Okay.
Now, when people get there and speak with racial undertones,
right,
they are not attracting that kind of attitude towards the judicial system itself.
Right. I'm out of time, Mr. Mvundlela, but thank you so much for speaking to us. Nkosana Mvundlela, the president of the Law Society of South Africa.